My dad tried to bully me into handing over my house so my golden child sister and her kids could move in like they owned the place. He thought I'd just roll over and say yes. Instead, I made one move that completely blew up their little plan and they never saw it coming. I'm a 32-year-old guy and I never thought I'd end up airing out my dirty family laundry on Reddit, but here I am. My hands are still shaking from how mad I am while typing this. Let me start by giving you some backstory just so this whole mess makes sense. For the last decade, I've been working as a vet tech at one of the busiest animal hospitals in the city. It's not exactly a job that makes you rich. I bring in about $60,000 a year, but I genuinely love it. There's just something about helping sick or injured animals recover that makes all the craziness worth it, even when I end up covered in fur, pee, and God knows what else. Scratches and bites? Part of the gig. And honestly, nothing beats the look on a pet owner's face when you help save their furry best friend. That moment alone? Worth more to me than some cushy six-figure tech job. But man, trying to save up for a house on that kind of paycheck? That's been one hell of a grind. Since I was 23, I've basically lived like I was still in college. Every dollar I could spare went toward making that dream a reality. I shared a tiny, overcrowded apartment with 3 other dudes, one of whom, I'm almost certain, was running some underground cheese operation out of his bedroom. I wish I was kidding. The smell? Still haunts my nightmares. I drove this beat-up old Toyota Starlet that made sounds like it was screaming in pain every time I started it, and I survived off the cheapest meals imaginable. If there was a $10 deal on ramen or frozen burritos, I was first in line. Meanwhile, my sister Lena, oh boy. She's 34 now, and where do I even begin with her? Imagine the most self-absorbed Instagram influencer you've ever seen, then crank that up to 11. She's got 3 kids from 3 different guys, and while they're cute little ones, I'll give her that, she treats them more like props for her social media than actual human beings. She's all about that mompreneur life. Always jumping headfirst into every pyramid scheme she stumbles across and somehow managing to talk our parents into backing her. Her whole brand is just a mess of trendy hashtags, staged family photos, and ridiculous captions like "Blessed Mama raising my tribe," while she dumps the kids off with mom and dad so she can go get wine drunk at what she calls business meetings with her fellow MLM ladies. And get this, she hasn't held down a real job since high school when she quit being a hostess at Applebee's because the uniform didn't fit her vibe. I swear to God, those were her exact words. But somehow she always manages to have the newest iPhone, a closet full of designer handbags, and she's constantly flying off to retreats in places like Cancun. How's she pulling that off? 2 words, our parents. Mostly Dad. The way he treats her compared to me, you'd think we were raised by 2 different people. When I needed new sneakers for school, it was always some version of money doesn't grow on trees. But when Lena wanted a new MacBook just because her current one wasn't trendy enough, that man whipped out his credit card like he was on a game show. For the longest time, I tried not to let it get to me. I figured I'd just focus on my own goals and keep grinding. Sure, it wasn't exactly glamorous living with roommates in my late 20s while Lena got to crash in our parents' fancy guest house for free. But I had a plan. Every bit of overtime I worked, every extra shift, especially the late-night emergencies, went straight into my house fund. While Lena was tossing cash at whatever crypto nonsense her boyfriend of the month was hyping up, I was diving into books and online courses about real estate, home maintenance, budgeting, anything to prepare myself. And finally, after almost a decade of living like a monk and busting my butt at work, I did it. I found this small but solid 3-bedroom ranch-style home in a decent part of town. It wasn't anything flashy, and yeah, it had its quirks. The bathroom still had that weird fuzzy carpet from the 70s, and someone at some point thought a neon orange kitchen was a good idea. But the bones were good, it was within my price range, and most importantly, it was mine. When I picked up the keys, I walked into that empty house, sat right on the living room floor, and just broke down crying. Might sound pathetic, but after watching my sister get spoon-fed everything her whole life while I scraped and clawed for every inch, it felt like I'd finally won something real. It felt like I'd proven to myself that doing things the hard way could still pay off. And speaking of Lena getting handed everything, here's where things take a turn. 5 years ago, our parents actually gave Lena a house. Not just any house, a gorgeous 4-bedroom in one of the nicest neighborhoods around. We're talking Tesla driveways, those little "this home is protected" security signs, and lawn service kind of fancy. Want to guess how long it took her to completely mess that up? Try under a year. She talked Dad into thinking it would be a genius move to sell the house and invest the money into one of her brilliant business ideas. This one was some bizarre combo of a juice cleanse startup and a music production company for her boyfriend at the time. Shock of the century, he ran off with the cash. Now she's back at our parents' guest house, still living rent-free, and they're footing the bill for everything, her spa days, her kids' private school, even her groceries. Meanwhile, I was over here doing my thing. Living in my house, fixing it up slowly, one project at a time. Pulled out that nasty bathroom carpet, seriously, who carpets a bathroom, repainted the kitchen, and even set up a proper little office. Things were finally starting to feel right. Then last month it all went sideways. It was a Tuesday and I just finished what had to be the roughest shift I've ever worked. Full back-to-back emergency surgeries, including one per German Shepherd who thought it'd be a great idea to eat a whole box of toys, Hot Wheels, Legos, you name it. By the time I stumbled through my front door, I was running purely on caffeine and adrenaline. I collapsed onto my old, beat-up but crazy comfy garage sale couch, and just as I was starting to doze off, my phone rang. It was Dad. Now, normally him calling isn't a big deal, but something about his tone was off. Like he was trying way too hard to sound casual, and maybe it was just me being completely drained, but my gut immediately knew something wasn't right. "Hey, son. You home? Mind if I swing by for a bit? Need to talk to you about something." "Yeah." I should have listened to that gut feeling. About 20 minutes later, I heard not one, but two cars pulling into my driveway. I glanced out the front window and yep, just as I suspected, Dad stepped out of his shiny black Mercedes. The one he likes to call the family car, though somehow Lena's the only one who ever gets to drive it. Then out of this brand new Range Rover, also probably courtesy of Dad's wallet, came Lena, barely able to walk in a pair of flashy red-bottom Louboutins that probably cost more than my entire monthly mortgage. No exaggeration. Honestly, I should have just shut the door and pretended I wasn't home. They waltzed into my house like it was already theirs. No knock, no hesitation. Lena instantly started judging everything in sight like she was filming an episode of HGTV. "Ugh, this furniture is so basic," she said with a fake little laugh. "Yeah, well, some of us actually buy things with our own money, sis. These walls need to be white to fit my aesthetic. They're beige? Close enough? But sure, let's pretend that's the issue." She looked around and smiled to herself. This would make the cutest room for Logan's TikTok studio. Her 8-year-old doesn't even need a TikTok, let alone a full-blown studio, but whatever helps her sleep at night. We all sat down. Lena flopped into my armchair like she was posing for a fashion spread and kept half paying attention while recording random clips on her phone. Dad cleared his throat, gave this awkward little chuckle, and then dropped the sentence that kicked this whole disaster into motion. "So, son, your sister's been dealing with a few challenges lately." Lena immediately cut in, all drama and fake modesty. "Oh my God, Dad, don't make it sound like a sob story. I'm just, like, pivoting my business model." She turned to me, doing that annoying sympathetic face people make when they want something. My meditation crystal biz didn't really vibe with my authentic self, you know? I didn't say anything, but I sure was thinking about the $20,000 Dad threw at that little spiritual scam just 3 months ago. Then Dad kept going, totally serious. "Anyway, we've been thinking, this house? It's kind of a lot for just one person. Lena's got 3 growing kids and they really need more space to thrive." He paused dramatically like this was some kind of movie reveal. "We think you should give Lena your house." For a second, I honestly thought I was dreaming. Like maybe I passed out after work and was hallucinating some kind of caffeine-fueled fever dream brought on by surgery stress and the smell of dog anesthesia. "Come again?" I said, blinking. Lena rolled her eyes so hard I'm surprised they didn't get stuck in the back of her head. "Ugh, don't be so dramatic. It's not like you even need all this space." She waved her phone toward the room. "I need a real setup for content creation. The guest house lighting is literally wrecking my engagement metrics." I looked at Dad, waiting for the punchline. Nothing. Just that same tired expression he always has whenever Lena wants something. That look that says, "Come on, just give her what she wants so we can avoid the drama." "You're not serious," I said flatly. Dad leaned in, dropping into his calm, businesslike tone. The one he always uses when he thinks he's being logical. "We've talked about it a lot. You're young, single, focused on your career. An apartment closer to the hospital would be more convenient anyway. Lena needs stability for the kids." I almost laughed right there. "Stability? You mean like the house you gave her and she sold to bankroll her ex-boyfriend's failed music career?" Lena's head shot up from her phone. "That was different. Trevor's mixtape was gonna be huge. How was I supposed to know he'd run off to Miami with that SoundCloud guy?" Dad threw up his hands like that would calm things down. Look, the past is the past. This is about family now. About helping your sister get back on her feet. I scoffed. Loudly. Back on her feet? She's never even been on her feet. You've been carrying her through every ridiculous choice she's ever made. Lena gasped like I just insulted the Pope. Wow, okay. That is so rude. I'm a boss babe running multiple businesses. Pyramid schemes don't count as businesses, Lena. And that's when Dad decided to go full nuclear. He leaned back and said, well, son, if you're not willing to help your sister, then maybe it's time we reconsider your position in the will. Everything went quiet. Even Lena stopped filming. And I don't know, man. Something inside me snapped right then. Years of biting my tongue, of watching her get everything handed to her while I busted my ass for every little thing I had. It all came bubbling up. Without saying a word, I got up and walked into my home office. Lena muttered, OMG. So rude. Under her breath. But I ignored her. I came back with a folder I'd been holding on to for years. Ever since the day she sold that house. Deep down, I must have known this kind of crap was going to come back around. You want to talk about the will, Dad? All right, let's talk. Quick sidebar on the folder. When Lena sold her house, something just clicked for me. Maybe it was the years of working emergency vet shifts and knowing how fast things can go south if you don't track every detail. But I started documenting everything. I kept receipts, saved screenshots of texts and posts, noted down every investment Lena bragged about online. Call it paranoia, call it instinct. Either way, it felt smart. I dropped that folder on the coffee table. You know, the one Lena had just called tragically suburban like 10 minutes earlier. The thud it made was oddly satisfying. Let's run some numbers, I said, flipping open the top sheet. The house you gave Lena, the one in Oakwood Heights, it was worth $785,000 at the time. She sold it for $800,000. Not bad. But where'd that money go? Dad shifted uncomfortably. Lena suddenly found her nails very interesting. I pulled out the next document. $50K straight to Trevor for his mixtape. He ghosted 3 weeks later. But hey, at least she got a face tattoo out of it, right? Lena rolled her eyes. Ugh, whatever. Then there's the $200,000 she poured into her crystal healing empire, which lasted 3 months before she decided crystals were out. And let's not forget the $250,000 she blew on that pyramid scheme. Selling magnetic water or something. It was alkaline ionized wellness water, Lena snapped. And people just weren't ready for that level of hydration consciousness, right? I kept going, laying paper after paper out on the table like I was playing a very expensive game of Uno. Designer bags. That Range Rover she can't afford. Spa retreats. Failed influencer workshops. Who knows what else? But here's the kicker, Dad. I had a buddy in real estate run the numbers on your current estate. The second I said that, Dad's face drained like someone pulled the plug. He went from squirming to straight up pale. Lena was still acting like she was laser-focused on her nails. But I saw her shoulders tense up. She knew what was coming. Your house, your investments, everything you've got left. It's all worth less than what Lena sold her house for, I said calmly. She's already had her inheritance. Actually, she got more than her share. She just burned through it like a fire sale. You could have sliced the tension in that room with a steak knife. Lena was trying to keep her phony influencer smile plastered on her face, but one of her eyes was twitching like a busted robot. Dad looked like he was one breath away from collapsing. So I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms and said, Go ahead, cut me out of the will. Doesn't matter. There's nothing left to cut me out of anyway. That's when Lena lost it. This is so unfair, she shrieked, jumping out of the chair like it bit her. You can't just throw numbers around like this. Then she went full drama mode. Money isn't everything. What about my kids? What about their future? You mean the kids you use to score brand deals? I snapped. The ones you parade around Instagram like props? Trying to turn them into TikTok stars before they can even spell their own names. At least I have kids, she screamed back. What do you have? A bunch of sick animals and this boring, basic little house. Dad finally stepped in, trying to sound like the calm voice of reason. Now, son, these numbers, they don't tell the full story. Your sister's businesses were meant to be long-term investments. In her future. I cut him off right there. No, Dad. They were just more of you bailing her out. Enabling her to keep screwing up without facing any consequences. And now that you've run out of houses and cash to throw her way, you want to take my home? The one thing I worked for. Completely on my own. By now, Lena was full-on crying. Though it wasn't the messy, real kind. These were the calculated kind of tears she practiced in her front-facing camera. She kept angling her face toward the light like she was trying to catch the right shimmer. You don't get it, she sobbed. I need a space that fits my brand. The guesthouse lighting is destroying my engagement metrics. My followers expect a certain vibe. Your followers? I laughed, shaking my head. You mean the fake ones you bought? Because yeah, I've got receipts for that too. Her mouth fell open. You wouldn't. I reached into the folder and pulled out another stack of papers. 10,000 fake followers. Bought last month. Wonder what your sponsors would think about that. Dad stood up like he was trying to put the brakes on everything. All right, that's enough. This is exactly what we're worried about. This kind of behavior, it's not how families treat each other. No, I said, standing up to face him. This isn't how families treat each other. Families don't try to steal from each other. Families don't bend over backwards for one kid while steamrolling the other. And they sure as hell don't threaten someone with a will that's already been drained dry. Lena's mascara was streaking down her face. So much for waterproof. That's what happens when you buy knockoff makeup from shady Instagram vendors. But she was still clutching her phone. Filming through the tears like this was some tragic season finale she could spin into content. My followers are going to hear about this, she said, sniffling. Just wait till I post the truth about this toxic family drama. Post whatever you want, I replied, pulling out one last document from my folder. But you might want to read this first. I handed her the contract she signed when Dad gave her that house. The one that said the money from the sale had to be used responsibly. The one that made her legally accountable for lying about where that money was going. Remember this? I asked. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a clatter. The look on her face said everything. I stood tall, gathered up my papers, and nodded toward the door. Get out, both of you. And if either of you ever threatens me with inheritance again, these documents are going straight to a lawyer. I kicked them out that night, thinking that had to be the end of it. I mean, how do you come back from being dragged like that? They were exposed completely. No way they'd push it any further, right? Wrong. I clearly underestimated just how entitled Lena was, and how far Dad would go to support her insanity. The next few days were quiet for the most part, except for Lena's little pity party on Instagram. She posted vague, passive-aggressive stories about toxic relatives and energy vampires. Pretty sure I was the vampire in question. LOL. She even posted this whole drawn-out monologue about how the universe sometimes makes you struggle so you can step into your abundance. Or whatever woo crap she was selling that week. All while she's clearly lounging at a luxury spa, one that Dad no doubt paid for. New designer outfit, too. Because of course. Meanwhile, I was back at work, trying to move on, get my life back to normal. I had this one case, sweet rescue pit bull who needed surgery. She pulled through great, by the way. She's thriving now with her new adoptive family. For a minute, it felt like things were settling down. And then came last Thursday. I was smack in the middle of a complex dental procedure on a cat, which, fun fact, is way trickier than it sounds. Cat teeth are no joke. That's when my phone started going nuts. Constant vibrating in my pocket. Normally, I don't check messages during procedures, but I had this weird sense in my gut that something was seriously off. When I finally got a break, I pulled out my phone and, holy hell, the first message was from my next-door neighbor, Owen. Dude, there's a moving truck in your driveway. Then one from Nina. Yes, her actual name is Nina, but she's great, not that kind of Nina. Are you okay? There are people moving furniture into your house. Followed by a string of increasingly panicked messages from both of them. Apparently, Lena and Dad were moving into my house. I could barely hold the phone, my hands were shaking so bad. I called Owen, heart pounding. Owen, what's going on? Bro, he said, your sister and your dad showed up with a U-Haul about an hour ago. Had a moving crew and everything. Brought a locksmith too. Said something about you giving them the house. I thought it was weird, but didn't want to assume anything. I felt sick. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency, easily the understatement of the century, and booked it out of work. The whole drive home, my brain was in a tailspin. Like, there's no way they'd actually do this, right? This had to be some huge misunderstanding. Nope. I pulled into my driveway and there it was. Giant U-Haul. Movers carrying boxes. Lena standing in the middle of it all, barking orders and filming everything for her Instagram like it was a lifestyle vlog. Dad was off to the side chatting with a locksmith who was actively changing my freaking locks. And the best part? Lena's kids were running around my yard yelling, "We get to pick our rooms," while Lena shouted at them for messing up her Instagram live. Her youngest, he's 2, I think, was drawing on my garage door with markers. Permanent ones. And Lena? Too busy adjusting her phone angle to even notice. So here's where things got really interesting. Funny thing, Dad, I said, folding my arms. I asked a buddy of mine who works in real estate to check out the current value of your estate. The second those words left my mouth, Dad's face went from mildly uncomfortable to sheet white. Like someone had hit him with a snowball. Lena was still pretending to study her manicure like it held the meaning of life, but I noticed her shoulders tighten. She knew where this was headed. Your house, your retirement stuff, your investments, everything you've got left isn't even worth as much as the house you gave Lena. She's already received her inheritance. Actually, more than her fair share. She just burned through it like lighter fluid, I added. Nobody said a word. The silence in that room was suffocating. Lena was doing this twitchy smile thing, like she was still trying to hold her influencer pose, but one eye kept blinking uncontrollably. Dad looked like he was about to keel over from stress. So I leaned back in my chair and said, real calm like, "Go ahead, cut me out of the will. What's left for me to be cut out of?" That's when Lena went full meltdown. "This is so unfair," she screeched, shooting up from the chair like someone lit a fire under her. "You can't just throw numbers at me like that." "Oh sure," I said. "Let's forget the numbers. Let's talk about those kids you're always using as props. The ones you dress in coordinated outfits and stick in front of a ring light before they can even spell dog." She gasped. "I have children. What do you have? A bunch of diseased animals in this basic, soul-sucking suburban box." Then Dad piped in, finally finding his voice. "Now, son, you're looking at this the wrong way. These numbers aren't the whole picture. Your sister's businesses, they were investments. In her future." I cut him off right there. I'd had enough. "No, Dad. What they were your way of protecting her from ever growing up. You've bailed her out of every mess she's ever made. And now that the bank of Dad is running dry, you want to take the one thing I earned completely on my own? My house." By this point, Lena was crying, but in that weird influencer way, trying to turn her face just right so the tears looked good on camera. "You just don't get it," she sniffled. "I need a real content space. The lighting in the guest house is ruining my brand's aesthetic. My followers expect quality." I couldn't help it, I burst out laughing. "Your followers? You mean the ones you bought?" "Because I've got proof." Her jaw dropped like I'd smacked her with a frying pan. "You wouldn't." I pulled out another stack of papers from the folder. 10,000 fake followers. Just last month. Curious what your sponsors would think if they found out. Dad stood up, trying to play mediator again. "All right, enough. This behavior, this is why we're worried about you. Families don't treat each other this way." "No," I said, standing with him. "Families don't treat each other this way. Families don't try to hijack each other's homes. They don't coddle one kid into being a train wreck while guilt-tripping the other. And they definitely don't dangle empty wills over someone's head like some kind of emotional blackmail." Lena's mascara was streaking down her cheeks now. I guess that waterproof label was a lie, probably like most of the other stuff she buys. But she was still recording bits of the conversation with her phone, like she could turn this whole mess into some viral sob story. "My followers are going to know all about this," she said, holding her phone like a weapon. "This is abuse. This is toxic family energy." I just shook my head and pulled out one last document. "Post away," I told her. "But you might want to check this out first." She blinked, confused. "Remember the agreement you signed when Dad handed you that house?" I asked. "The one that said you'd use the funds responsibly? The one that legally holds you accountable for what you claimed were business investments?" She went pale. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a hard thud. I stood up, gathered the folder back into my arms, and looked them both in the eye. Get out. Both of you. And if either of you tries to threaten me with the inheritance again, these documents go straight to a lawyer. I kicked them out that night thinking finally that had to be the end of it. Like, who in their right mind would still try something after being ripped apart like that? But apparently, I underestimated just how delusional Lena could be and how far Dad was willing to go to enable her circus act. The next few days were quiet. Kind of. Lena started posting those classic vague influencer jabs, stuff like, removing toxic people is self-care and beware of energy vampires dressed as family. Pretty sure that second one was aimed directly at me. LOL. Then she dropped a long, over-the-top story about how the universe sometimes makes you struggle so it can prepare you for abundance. Meanwhile, she was lounging at some luxury spa which Dad probably paid for, sipping a green smoothie and wearing yet another new designer outfit. Meanwhile, I was back at the animal hospital doing my thing. I had this sweet little rescue pit bull who needed surgery. She pulled through like a champ, totally thriving now with her forever family. Life was finally starting to settle back into a rhythm. And then, Thursday hit. I was smack in the middle of a complicated dental surgery on a cat. Side note, cat teeth are way more intense than people realize when my phone started vibrating nonstop in my pocket. I usually ignore my phone during procedures, but something about it just felt wrong. So when I finally got a break, I checked my messages. First text was from Owen, my next-door neighbor. Dude, there's a moving truck in your driveway. Next up? Nina. Yep, her real name's Nina, but she's awesome, not one of those Ninas. There are people moving stuff into your house. Is everything okay? I scrolled down and saw a flurry of messages from both of them, all saying the same thing. Lena and Dad were at my house, moving in. I called Owen with hands so shaky I could barely hit the call button. Owen, what the hell's going on? Bro, he said, sounding both baffled and concerned, your sister and Dad rolled up about an hour ago in a U-Haul with some movers. They had a locksmith with them. Told everyone you'd given them the house. I didn't want to assume anything, but it felt off. I felt like I was going to be sick right there in the break room. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency, which honestly felt like the understatement of the year, and bolted out of there. My brain was spinning the whole ride home. No way. No freaking way they'd actually try this. And yet, they did. I turned onto my street and sure enough, giant U-Haul parked in my driveway like it belonged there. Lena was in the middle of the chaos, yelling directions at some very confused movers while filming the whole thing for her Instagram story. Dad was off to the side talking to a locksmith who was literally changing my front door locks. And the cherry on top? Lena's 3 kids were running wild across my front yard, yelling, "We get to pick our rooms," like it was some HGTV dream home giveaway. Meanwhile, Lena was scolding them, not for the chaos, but for messing up her Instagram live. Her youngest, he's, like, 2, was busy drawing all over my garage door with a marker. Permanent. Of course. And Lena? Still too busy with her phone to notice. Right when I thought it couldn't get any messier, Dad started sputtering something about family unity and reputation and even managed to name-drop his golf club membership like that was going to save him from this disaster. But I've got to give credit where it's due, the police officers who showed up were absolute pros. Cool-headed, polite, but didn't miss a single beat. They took statements from everyone on the scene, including the locksmith who, once he figured out what he'd nearly helped them pull off, practically begged to help make it right. Turns out, the guy had no idea what he was walking into. As soon as he realized he'd been part of a potential felony, he flipped faster than a pancake. Totally willing to cooperate. The moving guys weren't any more clued in. They showed the officers a work order Lena had filled out where she claimed this place was her investment property. Yeah, pretty sure that's called fraud. But hey, I'm not a lawyer, just a very ticked-off homeowner. While one officer handled statements, the other one started overseeing the removal of everything they'd already dragged into my house. Watching them carry out Lena's bubblegum pink velvet couch, a couch that looked like it belonged in Barbie's living room, was honestly one of the best moments of my life. Lena's face when they started moving her stuff out? Chef's kiss. Meanwhile, Dad was spiraling. He was juggling phone calls, trying to get hold of his lawyer who apparently wasn't returning calls. So much for those golf club connections. At the same time, he was scrambling to calm Lena down, who was halfway between filming meltdown content and trying to hurt her kids, who were treating the chaos like it was some kind of YouTube prank challenge. Then came the cherry on top. Lena's middle kid, Caleb, he's 5, walked right up to one of the officers and, with the innocence only a kid that age can have, asked, "Are we going to jail like when Mommy took stuff from the mall?" I swear the cop's eyebrow went up so fast it nearly broke the sound barrier. The officer calmly asked, "Ma'am, is there something else we should know about?" Lena's face ran through a dozen expressions in 2 seconds flat: panic, fake calm, smile, horror, confusion. It was like watching her try to scroll through filters in real life. "He's confused," she stammered. "He means when I had to return something, that's all." "Caleb, sweetie, remember how we talked about not sharing grown-up things?" But Caleb wasn't done. "But you said the security guy was mean 'cause he didn't believe you were famous," he said proudly. "And then Grandpa had to come pay the store." "Mason," Lena shrieked, finally dropping her phone for the first time since the circus began. "Go wait in the car." The cops exchanged the kind of glance that says, "Oh boy, we're gonna need backup for this one." One of them stepped off to the side and made a quick call. I could hear him asking dispatch to run Lena's record. Dad looked like he was about to pass out. While all this was happening, the movers were still bringing stuff back out to the truck. One of them came over to me holding this massive, glitter-covered vision board. It had screenshots of my actual home listing, pictures of the house from the realtor's site, and in giant glittery letters across the top, Lena's empire. Where do you want this?" the mover asked. Lena lunged for it. "That's my manifestation board. I spent hours aligning the energy with crystals." Before she could snatch it back, the officer stepped between us. "Ma'am, anything brought in without permission has to be removed." But I already saged the space. Right about then, another squad car pulled up. Turns out, Caleb's little mall incident story? Yeah, that wasn't just a kid misunderstanding. There was an outstanding warrant for Lena over a shoplifting charge. Apparently, being an influencer doesn't entitle you to walk out of Nordstrom with a $300 purse just because you plan to post about it later. Shocker. The look on Lena's face when they read her rights? Absolutely priceless. And yet, she still managed to ask if she could face a different direction so the lighting would be better for her mugshot. You can't make this stuff up. Now here's where things really took a turn. Dad finally sprang into action, but not to help Lena. Nope. He started frantically gathering all the paperwork he'd brought. The same papers they'd used to convince the locksmith and movers that this house was theirs. Which, as it turns out, were fake. The officer noticed. "Sir, I'm going to need to see those." Dad actually tried to stuff them in his jacket like a teenager hiding a failing report card. "These? Oh, just old family photos." The officer wasn't buying it. "Sir, the papers." Now, as he started flipping through them, his face grew more serious with every page. Because guess what? Faking property documents isn't just sketchy, it's straight-up felony-level fraud. Who knew? While one cop was dealing with Lena's arrest and another was scanning through Dad's arts and crafts project, the locksmith quietly pulled me aside. The guy looked like he was about to pass out. "Listen, man," he whispered, "I swear I didn't know. They showed me those papers, told me it was family. I should have double-checked. Please. I don't want to lose my license. I'll give a statement. Just please, don't press charges." I took a hard look at the guy. He was clearly freaked, and honestly, he had helped get things back on track. So I made a call that would end up being way more important than I realized. I told him I wouldn't press charges if he gave a full, detailed statement about how Dad and Lena had presented those forged documents. And that decision turned out to be the thing that cracked the whole thing wide open. Because those fake papers, they didn't just look sketchy, they had forged signatures, official-looking stamps, the whole deal. It was textbook fraud. The locksmith's statement opened up a full-blown investigation. And then, Karma decided to show up in heels and throw the book at them. Remember Caleb's little bomb about Lena shoplifting? That wasn't a one-time thing. Investigators dug in and found that Lena had been running a whole con. She'd get sponsorships from brands, use their promo codes to order products, and then return everything for cash after posting pre-recorded reviews like she was still using the stuff. Over 30 companies had been scammed this way. And Dad? Oh man, his situation got even worse. Turns out, all those luxury bags, the Range Rover, the spa trips, even the kids' private school tuition? Yeah, that wasn't his money. He'd been skimming funds from his own company to pay for Lena's lifestyle. He created a fake consulting firm in her name and wrote off everything as business expenses, cooking the books for years. The fallout was brutal. Dad got fired. His company's suing him for every last dime. Criminal charges are pending. Lena? She's now facing multiple counts of fraud, on top of the shoplifting warrant. And somehow, out of all that wreckage, came the one bright spot in this mess. Logan's dad, Lena's ex, stepped up big time. Turns out he cleaned up his act. He's now married to a child psychologist, owns a house in a quiet suburb, and most importantly, he got custody of all 3 kids. They're in school now. Public school, which Lena would call a tragedy. But the kids? They're doing well. They're in therapy, they've got structure, and from what I hear, they're actually happy. So yeah, in the end, karma didn't just knock. She kicked the damn door down. And the house? Still mine, of course. No surprise there. I cleaned up the garage door. Bye-bye, toddler marker art. And finally painted over Lena's sad attempt at an accent wall. I don't know who told her neon pink was a good idea for a dining room, but it looked like Barbie threw up in there. One of the spare bedrooms is now a fully functioning home office, complete with a locking door and 0 glitter in sight. These days, my neighbors joke that my place is basically Fort Knox. After everything that went down, they say it's the safest house in the neighborhood, and honestly, they're probably not wrong. But the real cherry on top. Just last week, I got a letter from Lena, handwritten no less. She's apparently holed up at Mom's house in Florida, hiding from all the media attention. The tone of the letter was full-on pity party. She's sorry, she's learned so much, and she wants to rebuild our sibling bond. Oh, and she also wants help paying her legal fees. Yep. She even offered to boost visibility for the animal hospital where I work by promoting it on her Instagram, which, by the way, has lost about 80% of its followers since her arrest. I guess the internet isn't super forgiving when you're exposed as a scammer who buys fake followers and shoplifts yoga pants. I took a picture of her letter, wrote "N.O." across it in giant red Sharpie, and dropped it right back in the mailbox. Felt amazing. And get this, she's apparently telling people she's in talks to play herself in some kind of adaptation. Whether it's a podcast, TV show, or a straight-to-streaming mess, I don't know. Pretty sure it's just more of her usual nonsense. But at this point, I don't even care. I just laugh. My house is paid off. I go to work every day helping animals, which fills my soul in a way Lena's pyramid schemes never could. And the best part? I never have to worry about finding healing crystals wedged between the couch cushions ever again. So thanks for sticking with me through this roller coaster, Reddit. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that family doesn't always mean blood. Sometimes the best family is the one you choose, even if that family has 4 legs, a tail, and leaves fur on everything you own.